looking comfortable. Should I move this?
Okay, good evening, everybody. We are on Facebook Live again, and we continue with our memories of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj from Vrajalila and Ekavira Prabhu. Welcome.
Jai. And of course, Leela is asking us some questions. Our wonderful, beautiful moderator.
Thank you so much for doing this again. So I was thinking just for this last installment, two things, and I'll share them now so that this way you can speak as you wish. The first, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to really share the things that struck you deeply during that time with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Because I feel that those are the things that carry so much power, so much medicine in them. So I'm curious to know what you took from them. And then if there's time, I was curious if he left any instruction during this time, because there was a lot of reflecting and alone time for him, as far as the future of our movement and what we can do to bring it forward, you know, if he had any wishes or anything that he shared in that regard, as far as what, you know, how to preach, or what he wanted in the movement. So yeah, but other than that, I'd love to hear whatever you'd wish to share.
Well, thank you. We're going to say a prayer. Yes. Okay. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Swatideve Gauravani Pacharine Vivashesha Shinivadi Satyadesha Tarine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Mati Bhakti Tirtha Sahamati Namane Namaste Krishna Padaya Radha Chitatmane Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Turubhyascha Vipasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Hare. So we'll start with Ekavira Prabhu.
Hare Hare. That is a really deep question that you asked. And I'll just answer it briefly, because there were so many different things that impacted me in this, all the time that we served Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, but especially during that last year. And the thing that affected me as you know, that I first thought of when you asked the question was his mood of selflessness. And it was a manifestation from his desire, his compassionate nature. He was just compassionate. I mean, he just oozed that from his whole being, compassion. And whatever he actually did. So even though, you know, through that last year, devotees would put on the internet what was going on in his life every day. He would speak to devotees every day. He would bring them into the room every day. And it was such a public event. I remember when we were in Washington, D.C., one of the friends of the Institute, they came to the Institute and they were expressing that they were in this grocery store, Whole Foods. And they were standing in the checkout line and two people were discussing this event that one was experiencing. And the person said, you know, I'm experiencing this most amazing program over the internet. It's this Swami that is actually departing. And every day they give a play-by-play or what is actually taking place. And it's actually amazing. It's transforming my life. And she said, this has got to be Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And then she said, is that Bhakti Tirtha Swami? And the lady turned around and looked at her and said, yes, it's Bhakti Tirtha Swami. How did you know? And so it was going on far beyond our own knowledge and affecting so many different people. But what people really don't know about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was a very private person. He really preferred to be secluded, introspective. He liked his personal time, to do that. But for him to actually make every moment of his life a preaching event was his mood of selflessness and compassion. Even though he liked to be private, he liked his own personal space and everything, he used this event, which in most cases is quite traumatic for people to go through cancer and go through a dying experience. But he used this in a way that it could help and affect other people in their lives deeply and affect their hearts. So when you asked that question, this was the first thing that I thought about.
So for me, over the years, as I met Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, my Gurudev, in 1979, and was very fortunate to serve him until he left his body. And all those years, having served him in different situations, different places, I saw he was always speaking about things like developing stronger faith, things like forgiveness, how to have relationships. Sambandha was like so important to him, relationships. He was always helping himself, really, in ways that he would be able to share this so that people can understand it. So he would kind of sometimes do things, not practice, but just kind of speak with himself about how he would present some of these themes and these topics that he would hope would change people's lives. I guess the thing that struck me most was to see this person that I had learned so much from over the years, and to now see him put it into practice at the final moments, the final time. And to just, like, for me, that is something that I believe I have learned, that there is the philosophy, which is absolutely beautiful. There's the teachings of the philosophy. There is the practice of the philosophy in our daily lives. And then there is the living of the philosophy when we need to leave this planet. And I believe that this is what I learned from him during that time, that leaving the planet, we hear it all the time, and, we know the philosophy, and we have so many examples of how Srila Prabhupada left. He's left us so many different things to teach us, Srila Prabhupada. We hear from his disciples. At the same time, it's not until you're with someone and see them and really be there, going through that experience, that, at least for me, that made me know today, every day, I live in such a way that I know, I'm aware that that time will come for me. That time will come for me. And how will I be when that comes? Like, I watch my Guru Maharaj, who is so exalted in his knowledge and so exalted in his behavior and so exalted in his faith and acceptance of Guru, and so exalted in so many ways. And yet death, the transition, brings about the ultimate practice of all the things that he's lived, spoken about, in his life. And so to watch him do that, for me, it helps me to live in this world, but always know that their time will come, and it's not easy. It's not like, it's not an easy time. Some people may just leave their bodies like in their sleep or something. People say, well, that's a good way to leave. I'm not sure. I just know that the experience of watching someone leave that is really dedicated to humanity and dedicated to a group of people, his disciples, right? So dedicated to his disciples, so connected with his disciples. And to watch such a person go through all the physical challenges that the body goes through at death, and even some of the emotional things that the person may have had to go through in terms of giving the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and being in an organization, and then to see that spiritual soul, just like you just kind of can know, you can see the difference. You can see when the soul is like disconnecting from the body and disconnecting from the emotions. And that's like a glorious experience. At the same time, it's not easy to understand, and it's not easy to walk through with the person. So that for me, I think who's going to be there when I get ready to go, and who will be able to, like Vrajalila Swami came from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, you know what I mean? And that kind of friendship that's so deep, to be there. How's that going to be? I think of that sometimes, because that's like another life within itself, is dying. It's like dying is a life, and you got to have, people around. And I know, like, my husband will be there, whatever, I know. However, for what I also kind of understood from my Gurudev is, at that time, is how important it is to have genuine friendship, real friendship. What that really means. People that will be there for you, they'll be there no matter what, whatever, they'll be there. And people that's willing to give up things in their own life. People that are like in the case of Vrajalila Swami, he's so successful, doing so many amazing things, and he was just like, just so busy, and yet he stopped everything. He stopped it to be with his friend. It takes this quality of friendship for that to be there. And I think, wow, what friends? I don't know, Krishna range, I'm sure, but just those kinds of, I think those deep lessons for me was understanding the value of association of devotees, and how important it is to have deep friendships that can, go beyond all the external things. I think those two lessons for me, the process of dying, watching it, and the value of devotee association.
That's a really wonderful piece, because that Sambandha, as you were expressing, was something that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj emphasized throughout his entire devotional life. And during this process, he expressed that he wished that he had spent more time with those who were taking shelter of him, his disciples and well-wishers, to focus more on bhajan. Because during the dying process, And he expressed it, said, if you don't do it during your, devotional life, when it comes to the point where you're going through the different challenges, bodily challenges, mental challenges, it's not going to be easy to actually focus on Krishna and the holy name, and Krishna in the form of the holy name. And if we don't develop the deeper relationships to assist us during that time when we're actually having those challenges, we're not going to be in a fortunate position. And so that was one of his principles of community building, that those persons around you will likely be the ones that you leave the body with. And so when we are in the association of those, the devotees on a day-to-day basis, we want to be our best. I want to serve in a way that encourages and inspires someone else, and they encourage us, and we grow deeper and deeper in appreciation of the devotees and of the devotional process and of the holy name. And so, Sambandha is like really, really not important, but essential.
Essential.
Not just important, essential.
Yeah, because even though our Gurudev was like focused on the holy name, like anything, he was always chanting, always had his beads in his hands, always chanting. His devotion to Srila Prabhupada at that time, always, but that time he was really crying out to Srila Prabhupada every day. And I shared earlier how he would watch those videos of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and he would get absorbed. It was like he was trying to become like one with Srila Prabhupada, like be in so much in connection with Srila Prabhupada. Every day, that was our meditation. He would just talk about Srila Prabhupada, or talk about something from the video, and then of course he would always, the Dhammadarastakam prayers, we would deeply chant those prayers in the mornings, Namamishwaram, like deep, because we knew wow, we didn't know if there was going to be another Kartik and together, right? And there wasn't. There wasn't. And so every day we would look forward to chanting those prayers and being, with Radhe Shyam, and Radhe Shyam was the center of everything that we were doing. And so we had that understanding that, Krishna was, directing this process. At the same time, devotees were helping for the process to go on. And because we were isolated, it was a little more difficult, right? At least for us. Kumaj was in a whole different consciousness, but for us, it was a little more difficult. And so the reason I can value association so much is because I saw whenever one of his God family would call and he would talk to them, how he would become deeper in his bhajan, he would become deeper in his acceptance that, okay, I may not be here, they would just kind of inspire him internally to know that, okay, his physical body may not be here. However, he was, his work, which was to really help us all, to connect deeper with Krishna, that was what he was starting to focus on more, to help us to remember, that is our goal. Even though throughout my life with him, that's what I always got from him. However, at that time, I sense just like a different person emerging constantly. Every day there was a different person. And I saw that up until the time that he left his body. It was like, wow, this whole new personality came. And sometimes I listen to his classes. For a long time, I couldn't listen to his classes because it was, being emotional. It was a little hard. But however, when I listen to his classes, I hear his voice even change, right? From this very exuberant, strong, personality. And then I hear it changing to becoming this different kind of voice, the same person, different voice. And till the last time he spoke in public. If anyone listens to that tape, that class, it's like a totally different voice. Yeah.
Yeah, as he reached the transition period, he became more and more like a little boy. Just watching him. He used to sit and honor Prasadam and watch the Burjan Prabhu and Jagatarini's, what was that?
The puppet
shows. The puppet, he would sit and he just laugh. He laugh and laugh.
Yeah, he loved those puppet shows.
He just sit back and laugh. Yeah. Deep laughter. Yeah, so his mood it transformed from this majestic and, very noble personality that would go out and interact with kings and presidents and dignitaries to this person that was just a little boy, simple little boy. Yeah.
Yes. So, we thought we'd share maybe a couple of pastimes during that period. Kartik is coming to an end, so we'll share what happened when Kartik was coming to an end. Actually, it was so amazing because during that whole time, each day became more and more dramatic. Each day we had more drama, with this process of dying, of leaving this planet. And so towards the end of Kartik, it became so dramatic. We were like, oh my God, Krishna, what else is going to happen, Because I remember one time he was having a toothache. And my Guru Maharaj had like perfect teeth. He never had. So, he, I guess having a human body, he did have some challenges with teeth, but I don't think it was, he always, if anybody knows that his smile was what captured people. And this one day he was having this toothache. So we had to find a dentist to take him to the dentist. And we did find one. And so we took him to the dentist and I believe they extracted his tooth. Was that? Yeah. So the dentist, so while my Guru Maharaj is waiting for this dentist, to see the dentist to get his tooth extracted, because when we took him, they said, okay, we have to take the tooth out, right? And we're like, well, maybe we could try to figure a way to save it, and my Guru Maharaj says, no, let him take it out. He was like, I think if it was a few years before, he might have let us figure out how to save it, but now he was just like, nah, let them take it out. Anyway, there was this woman that was sitting in there, also waiting for the dentist. And, this lady, she said to us, who is he? She asked us, who is he? Because, even though he was ill, he was still so effulgent. And so I was speaking with her, sharing with her, oh, he's our spiritual teacher, our spiritual master. And Hawaii, people are a little conscious, some people. So she was kind of conscious. It seemed like she belonged to some other Eastern group. Lots of them there in Hawaii. So anyway, I was speaking with her, and then they called my Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj was sitting there, and Ekavira went with him into the dental room. And I believe that, that's when I believe he told Ekavira to let the dentist just take the teeth out. Anyway, I'm outside, I'm talking to this lady, and she's like maybe in her 30s, 40s, something like that. And this is, so she is enamored, totally become enamored, just looking at Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, right? And knowing that there's something special about him. And then, so when he came out, his he had all this cotton and stuff in his mouth. And he just like nodded and smiled to this woman, because I was sitting there talking to her. And then the lady just was like, where do you guys live? And what, so I shared with her where we live. I gave her the address and I said, right now he's in seclusion. We're taking care of him. And However, this is where we live. And so like a couple days later,
Well, actually, she told you
she told me,
where she lived.
oh yeah, she lived near. She actually, yeah, she did. So I live very, very near to where you guys are. And anyway, we just had this talk. So but like a day or two later, she comes to the house and she has all this different vegetarian food that she cooked, right?
Yeah.
It was Thanksgiving, right? It was Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving. And she made this whole Thanksgiving feast of like mashed potatoes and the whole bit, right? Like an American Thanksgiving feast.
And the interesting thing also is that
he couldn't eat it.
well, you know, we were considering, wow, it's Thanksgiving. We've been eating this austere, you know, having these austere meals. It sure would be nice to have something a little different. You know, it is Thanksgiving, and lo and behold, somebody shows up.
Yeah, and it was amazing because she was a vegetarian, and she, you know, she was some one of the, you know, one of the groups there, and so she brought all this stuff, and then we're like, oh my Krishna, this is so nice, but Gurumaj can't eat it, and what do we can't tell her that he won't be able to eat this, and we're like, we don't want to bring it. At least for me, I didn't want to bring it because if he saw it, he might want something because, you know, he's missing some of this food, right? This type of prasad. And so in any case, I took it from her and thanked her. And then I brought it into the house, and I don't remember, I think I offered it. And it was like the mashed potato, I think maybe he could have eaten that or something. I can't remember. However, most of the things he couldn't eat, you know? So the point though about this is, even though he was leaving his body, and even though he wasn't even speaking because he was in pain, there was something about him, his soul, that captured this woman, you know, and made her want to serve. So that was, of course, she must have also had some knowledge about service. So that was the other thing that I believe captured me in terms of my Gurumaj leaving. It was that when a person is leaving their body, they give us an opportunity to serve as selflessly as we possibly can. And that was, I think for me, that was such a beautiful experience to see so many people wanting to serve him, just serve him, and him wanting to serve them. And it was just, you know, he would, even though he's sick, he's doing everything possible to serve others, and others are trying to serve him. And in that experience of service, I really understood that this is what it's all about. You know, it's all about lovingly serving. And this is what it must be like when we go to the spiritual world, that we just want to serve Krishna. We just want to, not like now we might do, at least for me, might do some things out of duty, but it's like want to, like with my Gurumaj, I wanted to. I woke up every morning like wanting, you know, to do whatever service that I was to do, whatever was there to do, whatever. And I didn't even think, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Sometimes it was a little hard that I wanted to get out. You know, like I remember some days in the month I would be like, oh, we used to buy the boga. We used to have to go to the market to buy the boga for our cooking, which was our raw thing. And that was like an outing that I like relished, you know, like, oh, we're gonna go to the market. And even then we couldn't go along because we had to have somebody come and stay with him while we were gone. And so, yeah, it's this mood of service that I believe that it's much deeper than I sometimes, like I take it for granted, right? This loving mood of service, I sometimes take it for granted. And I just have to remember my Gurumaj and his dying process. And it brings me back to the reality of what I'm really about, what I'm to be about, you know, is to just lovingly try to serve others as much as I possibly can. Sacrificing, extending myself as much as I can. Yeah.
So each day, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would lead the Dhammadarastaka in the morning. And let's see, he would play, some days he would play kartals, and then some days he would play the madanga. There was actually not a madanga, there was like a little drum. It was an interesting drum there. And so he would bang on that, and the Vrajalila would play kartals. And then there was an old harmonium there with some, broken keys. And so that was the first time I really started playing harmonium. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he said, yeah, you play harmonium and then I'll chant. And it was awful trying to play the harmonium. It was so awful. And he would still encourage me, no, keep playing. And in my mind, I was like, I know he wants me to stop playing. This is off key and everything. Anyway, as time went on, I started catching his actual key and everything, and then I could play along. But he was so lovingly encouraging during those morning prayers of the Dhammadarastaka. I always will cherish those times, the prayers.
And so, Leela, you asked about whether our Gurudev left any instructions to us, and there's one pastime that also is very embedded in our memories, and Ekavira can maybe remember some of the pastime more than I do. I remember a part of it, and that was another crisis we had. I don't remember what happened. Something with, maybe you remember that. Why we had to take him to the hospital. And when you took him, we brought him to the hospital. He had a crisis, and there was a nurse that was coming to do his wound, to help with the bandaging of the wound. Anyway, this one day he had this something happened with his blood pressure, and everything went low, very, very low. And, we had to rush him to the hospital.
You mean when he started shivering?
And yeah, he was shivering, he was cold, he was getting like a fever or something. And then the doctors, they didn't keep him in the hospital. However, they gave us some things for him to take or something like that. But I remember that night when Ekavira brought him back from the hospital, we came back and...
He was in the hospital for a few days.
Okay, so when Ekavira Prabhu brought him back from the hospital,
Yeah, he was actually, what happened, he had a port which was inserted in his chest region that would allow us to give IVs instead of injecting it directly into his arm. And when he had the infection in his mouth, the infection affected this port. And so it seemed like he was having a fever and a seizure. He started shaking. And I said, we got to get him out of here. And so we rushed him into the truck, and then we went to the hospital. And so as they were there, they said, no, the port is infected. It has to come out. And so they took it out. And that time he wasn't there for that long. There was another time where he actually had to stay for a few more days.
So that was the day, though, this is now getting towards the end of Kartik. And so that's the day when, so Ekavira brought him back. I think yes, he brought him back from the hospital. There's twice he was in the hospital during that month that we were in, and we had to rush him to the hospital and just be there, not knowing really what was going on. Because remember, his doctor was in Mexico. He was the doctor that really was kind of knowing his care, knowing what to do. And, or at least he would be the one instructing us every day what to do, what not to do. So in any case, that day we took him to the hospital. And when Ekavira brought him, when Ekavira was bringing him out of the car, I noticed that he couldn't walk. Like my Guru Maharaj couldn't walk. And Ekavira was like carrying him.
Well, actually, he came out of the car, and he started walking into the house. And I was getting the bags because he had stayed in the hospital at this point for a few days. And there's a lot that took place in the hospital and his mood during those couple of days. Well, as he was walking into the house, he was walking into the kitchen where Vrajalila was. And I heard this scream, Ekavira, Ekavira, Ekavira. And then I just dropped the bags and I ran into the house. And when I ran into the house, he was using a cane, but at this point, he was leaning up against the wall and sliding. He was leaning against the wall and sliding down the side of the wall. And he was breathing heavily. And he said, I just can't do it. I can't move. And so I ran over and I grabbed him. And then I picked him up and I said, okay, I'm going to take you into the bedroom. And then he just grabbed me around. I said, just put your arms around my neck and I'll pick you up. And so I just grabbed him under his legs and then, we cuddled and picked him up and carried him. And then he said, no, take me into the restroom first. And then we'll go into the bedroom. I took him into the restroom, and then we washed him in the shower, and then I picked him up again. We had a little chair, he sat there, and then I picked him up again and carried him into the bedroom and laid down.
Yeah, and then so we never saw him like this. Now he's getting like something is happening more than what we'd seen the whole time we've been taking care of him. And we don't know, we're not doctors. So we're kind of like alarmed. So of course we can't go to sleep, right? And remember, we're like downstairs and we're like, coming up constantly up and down to try to see if he's okay. And at one point we saw that he kind of fallen off to sleep. But then at some point in like very early morning, like it was before Mangalarti time, like 2 or so in the morning, we heard like a noise, like something, like a banging. Yeah, because remember, we can't go to sleep. And so we run upstairs, and so he's in the bed and he was knocking. He had his cane, like he was knocking for us to hear him. So when we went up, he's like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna leave tonight. We're like, oh no, please don't leave. Not tonight. Not while you're within our care. Like if you're gonna leave, please let us just get you back to America. Like I was just like petrified, like, please, no. What would that be like? Our Guru Maharaj leaving. We don't even we're like, kind of, what do we do? Do we get him back to the hospital? What do we do? So we're like, Gurudev, we can take you back to the hospital. He's like, no. I don't want to go back to the hospital. I'm leaving tonight. So I'm like, Vrajalila, go get a pen and get some paper. I want you to write down all these different instructions of what I want to be done. And I was like, oh, Krishna. And so I am totally I'm like in tears. I'm like not knowing what to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, Krishna, please, give us some intelligence. What? So I said, okay, Gurudev. I got the paper. I got everything. I sat in the bed, near the bed, beside the bed, beside where he's kind of whispering but speaking, so I could hear. And then he starts giving me all these different instructions. And then he starts asking me on Ekavira, so who should do this? And who should do that? And who do I leave my DDs with? And he's like asking us, And I'm like, oh my God, Krishna, this was, at that point, I was just really overwhelmed, but I knew like I had to be present because he's saying he's like dying. And so then we came up with all the different things, with his deities, with his house, with this, with that, with the people that were supposed to do what. And, we put names to the whole thing, to his samadhi, which he already had thought about, all these things. And it was incredible, And so he just engaged us like that throughout the whole thing. And then in the morning, when morning came, he said, let's chant and let's chant Dhammadarastakam. Let's chant. And then after we chant, let's chant Dhammadarastakam. And I was like, what? And so he had given us so many instructions. And so we knew we had gone through that crisis moment that we kind of knew like where he stood, where what he wanted in terms of ISKCON, what he wanted in terms of his disciples, what he wanted in terms of his belongings, in terms of his everything. And he had allowed us to make those decisions with him, and what was interesting is in the next few days, of course, he felt better. And so we put all those, we kind of like, we never forgot that night, but we just put some of those things aside, knowing that we wouldn't, we would probably need to revisit it some other time. However, that night, we really thought he was going to leave. And so some of the things that I remember that really stood out for me in that night when we thought, we thought he was leaving is two things. Is people need to put their stuff in order before, like once you hit 60 or 60 something or something, I don't know, whatever. I think even earlier, everybody needs to have in order some of the things that they want to happen, where they want the books to go, or their what, or who they want what, because he kind of hadn't had that, he had it in his mind, but he hadn't put it down on paper. And so we put it down on paper. So now a lot of our God family, we all think about those things. Some we still need to do. So that was something I realized that we need to be prepared. We need to really be prepared because death can come at any moment, and he was preparing us. He was teaching us like, okay, this is what has to happen. You need to know that these things, and you need to be prepared and get the paper and get the pen and write it. And, like that. And that's just how Guru Maharaj was, he's always like, he used everything as a means of instructing and teaching. And I'm just very grateful that I was able to kind of had those kind of lessons from him, those very kind of just very I don't know. I mean, I'm just grateful that somehow I was there. Somehow Krishna allowed me to be there. Krishna allowed me to be there, to be with this amazing personality and get this amazing, just directions, just personal direction, I want to say. So that was an experience, He started deteriorating after that, though. After that experience, he was in another time in the hospital, and then the doctor. Maybe we want to tell you about that Jagannath pastime with that doctor. You remember that one? And then we'll close with the last pastime of when we were getting on the plane coming back to America.
This particular doctor, he was a naturopath. And at this point, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was looking for somewhere where he can get some help, some treatment, but at the same time, a little leery. And so we were not so sure we wanted to see this doctor. But anyway, we went. And so we were discussing and said, he said, I'm not so sure. And then, where is it? I said, it's right up here from the address. And so we went there, and it was almost looked like it was a office building, but it seemed like it was an empty office building. Glass, full glass. And so anyway, we rode around to the front, and then there was someone, and they came out of the building, And when they came out of the building, he said, "I'm Dr. such and such. I can't remember his name." And we said, "Oh, really?" And then he grabbed his medical bag. And when he grabbed his medical bag, he turned it around, and right on the side of the medical bag was the Jagannath sticker. And then we looked at the Jagannath sticker, and then Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj just laughed. He said, "Well, I guess we're supposed to be here." Now, all the time, we didn't see any deities or anything at that point anyway. But yeah, he came in, and we said, Vrajalila asked him, said, "Where did you get that on the side of your bag?" So, "Oh, I was in Australia, and someone on the street came up and gave it to me." So I really liked it. So I put it on my bag, and I carry it with me every day. It just makes me happy, the image. And then he went and he had treatment, and he was getting some help. But at a certain point, he had this one experience. It was really intense. It was, the office building was, like I said, a glass building. It was newly constructed. It had carpeting. It was really a nice office. And it had carpeting where this doctor was actually performing his procedures. And what he would do was he would ozonate Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's blood. And in this special procedure, he would remove blood and actually make like a transfusion. He'd ozonate the blood outside of the body and then inject it back into the body. But this one day, the blood, when he was trying to place it back into Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, it just came out of the needle came out of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's vein. And then blood just started shooting all over the room, all over the carpet. And the doctor was panicking, and, I was grabbing the hose and everything. And then at a certain point, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was just there.
Yeah, he was amazing.
He was so calm. He was just looking around.
And blood is everywhere.
Blood is everywhere. And the doctor said,
"Never happened.
This has never happened before. I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
This has never happened before. I don't know what's going on here." And then he said, "This is far beyond me. This is not a typical medical experience. And I've never had any experience like this." He said, "But I think I'm not empowered to handle you. I don't think there's anything that I can do for you." Yeah.
Yeah. And actually we didn't go back after that to him. And it was interesting because the doctor, he was a little frightened. And at the same time, he was a little kind of intrigued by what was happening because he thought himself to be such a great doctor. And he had been doing that for so long, and he's never, ever had anything like that happen. And so in some ways, he was also a little embarrassed and also guilty because he thought, wow, it was a lot of blood, and he did catch himself because he was so stunned at first. He didn't know what was going on. So he did get himself together with Ekavira's help to stop the blood. But then he just got up, Guru Maharaj just got up after they stopped the blood, and they got this thing on his arm, and we just got back in that truck, that famous truck, and drove back I think it was, I don't remember where it was, but anyway, we were in Big Island. And so we drove back, and that was just a part of some of the things that would happen. Those are some of the kind of things that would happen as we were caring for him. Things that took us way out of our comfort zone, because it was especially the physical parts of him getting this kind of medical treatment. Like when I would see that, because the physical part I'm not so comfortable with. And so, you know, in the hospitals or with the dentist or whatever, you know, and it didn't help. It didn't help when he would get these treatments that he had the cancer, because I guess the cancer made his immune system weaker. And so getting anything else was kind of just adding to what he already had. So, yeah. So anyway, he was really deteriorating at this point. But I do want to kind of just say, because this is the last of these series that we're going to do about what Leela asked, because it's really relevant to, to all of us, that, and this I'll share, this didn't actually happen in Hawaii, but this is something that is relevant to the things that you asked about instructions. So there, you know, many people had challenges with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj because he did things so differently. Gurudev, he was very innovative and very creative, and you know, he just brought Krishna consciousness to people in many different, you know, different ways. He was just an innovator with Krishna consciousness, and so many people didn't understand, and so many of his God family didn't understand. However, one thing I personally asked him in terms of God family that I knew had challenges with him for the way that he presented Krishna consciousness. And I remember him sharing with me, you know, that, you know, now he's left now 14 years ago. So he shared this with me just in a conversation. And I think this is before ISKCON started putting this into practice now. I believe it is now part of our ISKCON organization. However, he told me, he said, you know, all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples are empowered to give Krishna consciousness. And we're all empowered in different ways. And some of us are fundamental and some of us are not. But we are all important in the mission. All of us are important in the mission. And we need to have the fundamentalists as well as we need to have the innovators. So we need to learn how to work together to bring what Prabhupada wanted. And so there was one particular person that was really kind of over the top in terms of how he would be critical of our Guru Maharaj. And I specifically wanted to understand more about, once my Guru Maharaj left, how to kind of understand that situation. And my Guru Maharaj instructed me to be always kind if I come in contact with that person, and to really be kind to his disciples, because that person is a spiritual teacher, and to really kind of understand, you know, that all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples are working on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, and to not hold in my heart any kind of resentments or anger or disturbance about his God family in terms of how they might present Krishna consciousness or in terms of how they might think about him. He really helped me to keep my heart open and to understand how to really practice and live unity and diversity, and how to understand that we can maybe not like a person's behavior. However, you know, to really kind of internally know that that's not who the person is, that the person is a beloved servant of Srila Prabhupada. And so I believe that's a difficult thing in our ISKCON movement to understand and accept, where we sometimes can be really judgmental, and sometimes that creates, I believe, a lot of separation. And my Guru Maharaj was really kind of someone that didn't like separation. He really didn't like that we would be separate because of ideologies. He just wasn't, he wasn't like that. That was not the person I knew. And so I learned, and we all did, all of us. I'm not just saying me, I'm just sharing me because, you know, I happen to have been there closely in the death process. he was always teaching this, though, to all of us, you know, to be loving, even when we may not understand what somebody's doing, or we may not agree with what somebody's doing. And so I find in my own Krishna conscious life that that's something that I always try to practice, and I fail many times. At the same time, I know this is what my Guru Maharaj wants of me. And I know that's what he wants of all of his disciples. And I pray that somehow he can, you know, in his service that he's doing with Srila Prabhupada, that somehow we can somehow come up to his standard of what he wanted us to be, because that's important for us as well as humanity, as well as, yeah, just in terms of us being exemplary for others. So, yeah, so I wanted to share that. I wanted to share how important ISKCON was to him, even though he was different, and how much he wanted us to understand what Prabhupada gave to the world. So, yeah. And I think we're going to close because it's way past the time.
Yeah, and different he was, because many of the innovative ways in which he was trying to spread Krishna consciousness, he was doing in the 80s, 30 years ago. And inside of our institution, there was quite a bit of, how could I say, disagreements, if you will, in the way in which he was actually presenting Krishna consciousness, but is acceptable now. And as a matter of fact, it's something that they see the actual results are actually quite profound. But in his particular way, he used to express that, you know, there's always, it's important to have, as Vrajalila was expressing, your fundamentalists, and also then you need those that are willing to take the risk to go out and spread Krishna consciousness to those persons who aren't so inclined. And so there has to be some persons that actually do that. And that was his mission. He saw that as his mission. He said, my mission as Srila Prabhupada is, if you accept it, he accepted the mission, was to take Krishna consciousness into other areas in which many people weren't willing to go. And so, yeah, and that wasn't understood. And he used to express, he said, you know, all my life, people have tried to put me in a box. So, you know, don't put me in a box, because I'm not an in the box person. And so even when he was departing, he said, you know, don't put my ashes in a box.
Yeah, we had to get around. He made sure before he left that he saw his urn. I mean, he made us go pick out his urn and bring it and show it to him that it was not a box. So his urn is round. That's in the ground. It's round. So that was just our Gurudev, you know, and we are just so grateful for all that he gave to all of us. And, you know, we're grateful on behalf of all his disciples, who we know it's been hard for all of us, you know, to jump back, as they say, jump back in the fray. It's been a little difficult. And yeah, the devotees, I believe, though, most of his disciples, I believe, are getting through the grief of the Guru leaving, and again remembering, you know, that he's not his body and who he really is. And I believe most of the disciples are getting that awareness again. Back, they're becoming back, you know, once again, like situated in being enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness. And I just want to say, like, this Kartik month, you know, I've been so much being nurtured by so many of my Guru Maharaj's God family. I wanted to just thank them for helping us. You know, I want to thank, of course, His Holiness Satyananda Maharaj, who we've been sharing his inspirations this entire month of Kartik. I want to thank His Holiness Radhanath Swami, who I look at him when he's doing these, his yatra. I was watching some of his classes over the last few days and just seeing how much love he gives to the devotees by how absorbed he is in all the pastimes of Krishna and sharing so much small details about these pastimes. And then just how he just acknowledges, you know, his God family. And there's just always so much love that's coming from my Guru Maharaj's God family. And also His Holiness Indradyumna Maharaj. Sometimes I just sit and look at his tapes. When I think of my Gurudev, sometimes I sit and I watch Indradyumna Maharaj in some of these places that he goes. And by him going to these far out places, it actually nurtures my soul to watch, you know, to watch him. I think the last one I looked at recently was him in Gangotri or one of these places, and it's freezing, icy cold. And I think he's going up a hill and he's being carried. And just that these devotees are so dedicated to show Krishna consciousness in so many different ways. You know, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for that. And there's so many. And so I know, like our Guru Maharaj, his physical body's gone. However, he's still so present. And I know that if I want to stay focused in Krishna consciousness, if I want to stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and if I want to stay inspired in Krishna consciousness, I just have to go and just even, I don't even have to be with any of these devotees. I just go on YouTube. I just can go on YouTube and connect and get inspired. That's how empowered these devotees are. So there's so many, you know, Dave Rita Maharaj, I listen sometimes to his classes, how he's inspiring people about the ecology. However, specifically for Kartik, I've taken shelter of Indradyumna Maharaj, Satyananda Maharaj, and Radhanath Swami for giving me Kartik strength.
And that's, you know, we understand the importance of Bani, the instructions, and it's the most important. At the same time, these great souls, you know, they're very rare, and we have a rare opportunity to interact and serve. So Vapu is extremely important also, because we have an opportunity to see how the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is, and the instructions are practicalized. And that's something that is extremely rare, to see how things are practically applied in the day-to-day life. And that is seen through Bapu.
So we thank you both, Shuri and Leela, for giving us this opportunity to share some things about our spiritual master. Yeah, these are things we just haven't come together to share them in the last 14 years like this. So we really are grateful.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much. And thank everyone for
thanks everybody that's listening in. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Yes.
I wanted to mention that this is really, really special that you're sharing these teachings and these pastimes, because, you know, especially now in our culture, in our world, there's so many people that have ideas of how we should live, but no one's really talking about how to die and how to teach us how to die. And this is so important. And this is this legacy of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj teaching us how to die, you know, through his instructions, and it's in his books. And through you sharing these pastimes is really, really priceless, and we need more of it. So this is really special. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.